Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show. Today we're doing government and security. It is July 2nd, almost July 4th for us in America. Woohoo! Hopefully all of you guys will still have all your fingers after these episodes air.
If you're going to throw them with an open palm, because it's the
grip.
It's the grip that gets you. It's all that energy just got to go somewhere. And Wendell, obviously not here. He might drop in. We're not sure.
Yeah.
But he's got some stuff going on. And the FCC has got some stuff going on this year. They've been it's banger after banger from the old FCC. They're going hard, and this one I think benefits all consumers. Hard to argue against it.
FCC rule could make carriers unlock all phones after 60 days.
Even, it seems, if you're not done paying for the phone yet. Obviously.
Kind of incredible.
The mobile lobby is going hard against this. But, again, it's hard to argue that this isn't pro-consumer.
The government stories this week were a lot of I guess it's every week or whatever, but it felt like it was especially bad this week where it was like, no, think of the lobbyists, though.
Yeah. And some mobile companies, the telecom companies that we have in this country, may surprise you because based on all the other headlines we've seen, you might think, how is this still a thing? Some other people are also asking those same questions.
Exclusive, U.S. probing China Telecom, China Mobile over internet and cloud risks.
That's not in China. It's right here in the U.S. of A. So they handle a lot of the overseas communication and stuff like that. And the U.S. government is saying, hey, we're going to need a lot more visibility into what you're doing. And we're going to treat you differently than the other telecoms who we kind of let get away with murder because we're afraid you're spying on us. You know how we use the other telecoms to spy on our people? We're afraid you're doing that. And we don't like it when you do it to us. So look forward to that. And here's some good news, although in kind of a bad way, I would say. It sucks that it had to go this way, but you can't fault the man for taking the deal. My God, who among us would not have taken the deal?
Julian Assange agrees to plea deal with Biden administration that will allow him to avoid imprisonment in the U.S.
This was earlier in the week. It has happened. He is back in Australia, a free man. He's going to have some stories to tell, huh?
Yeah.
Start a podcast, my friend.
He's probably already ordering the mics and stuff, getting it set up, ready to go.
They pointed out somebody donated $500,000 to get him over here and fly and get everything done.
Wow.
Yeah. A freedom-loving rich man. A freedom-loving whale.
Oh.
And some, I would say, bad news. The Supreme Court giveth and taketh away. We won't talk about what they did today because there's no story. I mean, there's stories, but we didn't get them in here. But, this one, probably bad for the people because it does allow the government to basically propagandize us without any pushback.
U.S. Supreme Court will not curb Biden administration's social media contacts.
The argument was we didn't tell them they had to do anything. We suggested strongly. Now, we've seen some emails that have been leaked. It was very strong, incredibly strong. And it is a group of people who are constantly suing and attacking these big tech companies. Not that that's not deserved. So you would think that they would be...
It's hard to find someone to root for in this story, really. Nobody comes out looking great.
But if this was about how the thing that we're not allowed to even say, which shows you how much social media companies kowtow to that kind of thing. But back in the day... past couple of years, they told them that they weren't allowed. They had to censor certain things. They weren't allowed to discuss certain things, how to control the algorithms, and probably overreach. But the Supreme Court says no. They were just making their opinions known. And the government is, when they rule on things, one of the important things is that we all have the information that they have, right? Like, how can we know what is wrong if you don't tell us the rules? But in some cases, they really, really don't want you to know those rules.
Why Coinbase is suing the SEC and FDIC over public records.
So their internal discussions on cryptocurrency type stuff, their decisions on that kind of stuff, some of that stuff is hidden. And the crypto companies are like, hey, we need to know this.
We need to know the precedent here
Yeah.
so we can understand how to do this.
It seems like that you're just trying to get rid of us and you're not telling us how to comply. So the government has actually not said anything about this as far as I know. They've been...
Do you think there's like some internal panic of like, oh crap, we don't actually have rules? Or it's the week before holiday and everyone's just checked out.
Oh, I think there's a lot of panic in Washington right now.
Oh, yeah.
We're filming this on Friday before, so if you can guess the timing. And here,
Like, debate amongst yourselves.
you just said hard to find somebody to root for here, right?
Yeah.
And here it's difficult.
I was kind of confused a little bit. I was like, U.S. mayors urge Congress to ditch red tape slaying broadband expansion bill.
So here's the bill is supposedly designed to make broadband expansion better and faster, which of course we all want that because broadband is terrible. The problem is the way that it does it is it strips power away from local governments, puts it in the hand of the federal government and the telecoms. So when the telecom comes into your town and they say, hey, we want to expand broadband here and here's how we want to do it, it's going to be a lot harder for local politicians to say no to that. In some cases, maybe even impossible. And so the mayors are saying, hey, you can't take away our power. We can't negotiate because the telecoms are already strong-arming us. And now they know that we've got no power.
Yeah, I don't know.
On the other hand, you want that.
The internet.
You want that internet.
The internet should be a utility at this stage, and yet it is not.
But we do know that corporations don't play fair. And once they hit a certain size, which all of the telecoms have hit, they become very, very difficult to do anything against.
Amazon retaliated after employee walkout over the return to office policy, NLRB lawyers say. Now, Amazon was very quick to reply to this one. They were like, no, this person sucked, and they've sucked for like a year. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what they said.
The timing is very suspicious, though. So
Yeah.
after this person helped organize some union type stuff, they got put on one of those performance reviews. They claimed that their performance was exactly as it had been before. And then ultimately, that after the performance review, they were gotten rid of. And so they are suing and saying that this was retaliation for union stuff and not performance related.
It does make you wonder, like, had they had a performance review before, or was it literally just like, okay, we see you doing union stuff, let's start this process now?
Even without knowing those facts, Amazon's history here is a bit suspicious. Remember the thing, the slideshows?
Oh, yeah. No union activity.
So we know where they stand on that. This is look at this. What a terrible.
It's a drop-down menu, but it's like hover only.
But you can mouse out of it. Look at that.
That's weird.
Terrible. Chalk beat Detroit.
It should just make me click it. Don't do hover, Nev. How does that work on mobile?
Mobile.
Yeah. Anyway.
They didn't design mobile first. So here's an interesting one. Now they've draped this in identity politics, which is nonsense. But the reason I added this is, should we dictate what schools teach? I'd say if they take federal funding, maybe we can. And this one doesn't seem like a bad idea considering.
Yeah, I thought this was a net positive. High school computer science classes might expand in Michigan. Will they address equity issues?
Again, a terrible headline. What's actually at stake here is they are requiring all schools to at least have one computer science course in high school.
I think that's fair. I think that's necessary in current year.
What percentage of the population uses a computer every day?
Probably a large amount.
It's in the 90s, right?
I was amazed by how many of my younger cousins, we actually had a whole little computer science wing at our school, but it was all optional classes. So a lot of them didn't even get a typing class until they were well into high school. And I was like, that's insane considering how much work is done on computers. You should not be typing like this as a almost adult.
I typed faster than every teacher in my school.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't a thing in those days. I mean, it was, but not at our school.
Yeah, I took typing classes. We had classes for learning Word, Excel. I did some of the Adobe Creative Suite when I was in high school. We had all kinds of classes like that.
It's been useful, right?
Yeah. Turns out I got a career in that, so it worked out.
Certainly more useful than some of the stuff I took in high school.
Yeah.
Well, the world has moved into, wireless. We're going to have satellite communications for everybody very soon. That's going to be interesting. But those old landlines are still hanging there. But you know who wishes they weren't?
AT&T can't hang up on landline phone customers. California agency rules.
AT&T does not want to deal with those. They've got some customers who are out in the boonies in the mountains of California, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
And because they have taken so much money over the years, they have to promise that, part of this money you took was the 911 program. You have to give these people 911.
Imagine if this was an electric company or a water company. It was but it's really hard to run water out there. And it's it's a utility.
In 5 to 10 years that we're going to see that. You wait till we start running out of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So California says, no, you have to support these people. I imagine their service is going to be just trash. They're going to try to push them away any way that they can.
I'm amazed because the little local Facebook group for the little town that's not really even a town that I live in, people were like, AT&T is coming. We're getting another option. And I was like, oh, but it's AT&T. You guys don't understand.
My parents had this here in Kentucky, not in California. And they just didn't really pay attention to it or didn't understand. But the way that AT&T did this to them was they just kept raising the bill.
Yeah.
They were paying over $100 for phone service. And I was like, you got to switch to something else. I mean, that's insane.
I'm amazed that so many people still have landlines, but they are useful in some cases.
They had a landline, but they didn't have a phone that wasn't wireless. So they all required power bricks. And the power went out, and I was like, just plug straight in. And they're like, no, the power's out. I was like, no, you don't understand. It still works. I had to get them one of those little dollar store phones. It's if the power goes out, plug this in. They won't. Over in the EU, they are still going after, you guessed it, big tech companies. Boy, we never see these headlines, do we?
Let's a whole block of them. EU charges Microsoft with abusive bundling of Teams and Office, breaching antitrust rules.
We knew this was coming. We've been talking about this for a long time. These are just the official charges. And there will be more and more of these headlines. We'll talk about it more in the future, so go read it yourself if you're interested. And Microsoft is deep in the government. As we learned, remember when everybody got hacked? And it was Microsoft's email that allowed that to happen. And a lot of people said, hey, maybe I'm not comfortable having Microsoft here if they can't protect us. Well, somebody in the UK probably saw those headlines and was like, wait a minute, let me look into what's going on over here.
Microsoft admits no guarantee of, I can't pronounce this word, but I know what it means, for UK policing data.
Sovereignty.
I want to say sovereignty, and that's not right.
That would be. You should always pronounce it.
Sovereignty.
So, as you know, everything that gets loaded up to Microsoft modern operating systems, Windows 11, goes into the cloud and OneDrive, and the autocomplete hits the cloud. The AI is in there looking at everything.
The screen scraping that's going to be in Windows 11.
So somebody was like, hey, considering we're giving you police data, which is very sensitive, exactly how are you promising us that this is going to be kept and within our borders? Because they got those new laws.
Yeah.
And Microsoft is like,
that sounds like a you problem. What are you going to do? Not use Microsoft products?
Exactly.
And Germany keeps trying and it never works out.
But that's not even that's just for government offices.
Yeah.
This is more of the database level stuff, which Germany is probably using Microsoft for. But it's interesting you bring up Germany, because Germany is one of the countries that is very involved in this, because they are not happy that China electric cars are cheap, because the reason they're cheap is because the Chinese Communist Party is subsidizing them and dumping them.
China and EU to hold talks on electric car tariffs.
So they're saying, they announced the tariffs. They're pretty extreme. What were they, 30-some% in some cases?
Significant.
So China's like, hey, let's talk about this. I guess they're going to work something out, or try to. Would you drive a Chinese EV?
I can't even think. What are some other Chinese car brands?
BYD.
I don't. Even non-electric. I can't think of any Chinese car brand off the top of my head.
The BYD, I think, is like the current leader in mileage, isn't it, for the batteries?
I don't know anything about the reliability.
Well,
Well, I mean, I'm even outside of the electric, but like I don't know it. Like I said, don't know any of the Chinese car brands, so I would feel a little nervous.
I don't think American car brands currently are
great either
on
now.
fire with their reliability.
But at least you have something to go off of, right? Like there's a reputation there, one way or the other. I got no idea with Chinese cars.
One way that you could learn more about that, Krista, is you could take out your iPhone and you could use the new artificial intelligence. Oh, have those rolled out yet? Probably not. Right?
I don't think so. I don't have an iPhone either.
But if you waited a little bit, you could engage on your iPhone with artificial intelligence, and it could summarize all of those Chinese car companies, give you some ideas about the reliability and so forth. You could do it, but some people will not be able to.
Apple's refusing to launch Apple Intelligence in the EU. Here's why.
Yeah, the reason is kind of like the stuff we were just talking about with Microsoft. Apple knows that they can't follow those rules. With AI, the way they're doing it, they cannot follow those rules. And they know it.
So just no EU.
And Apple, much like Microsoft, is getting the week after week treatment that they always get.
Apple in breach of law on App Store, says EU. It's that time of the week again. It's time to do another give me money because you didn't comply with our rules.
So which egregious offense is it this week? Well, this week it is the whole idea that you're not even allowed to tell your customers, hey, there's another way to pay for this, where you don't have to pay the 30%. Hey, just click this link and you can give us money and you don't have to give Apple any money. Well, in the EU, restricting that is against the DMA, their new law, Digital Markets Act. So Apple's probably going to be writing another check.
And they'll probably just keep writing checks because it's still cheaper than actually complying.
And we often talk about the war on cash. A lot of people will tell you that that's not real. Maybe talk to some Swedes about it.
Why going cashless has turned Sweden from one of the safest countries into a high crime nation. High crime nation seems maybe a little hyperbolic for Sweden. I don't know a lot about Sweden, but
they do point out that their gun crime and violent crimes have skyrocketed. Not related to this. But what's going on here is online crime, obviously, payment exploits, stuff like that. They describe one of the things in here where a woman was buying something online. She got a notification and it was like, oh, hey, we just sent you a notification. Please supply it here. And I think it was just an AI caller. They got her. They took the money. And apparently this is a very big problem in Sweden because everybody is on. They got something like a country.
paywall. Fortune.
I can't remember what the name of their thing is, but they've got like an official countrywide digital payment system thing. It's kind of secure, but not if you give out your confirmation codes to other people. So people get phished and stuff. They lose money, and you're kind of. It's hard to get any of that back. I mean, it's hard to get cash back as well, I guess.
Yeah.
But at least you don't, like ignorance doesn't hurt you too much on cash. Most people can understand the concept of like, I have this and then you have it.
Yeah. There's a reason that all the marketplace sellers, cash only.
Which will be illegal soon.
No, you can't shut down the marketplace. I got to get cursed objects from there.
You're going to be paying with CBDC. You'll have to barter.
Oh, that would be kind of cool.
Crafting. You have to make crafts and barter.
I had a professor who was super into he was like, oh, everyone should be bartering.
I don't have anything to barter with.
Well, you can barter with skills or time.
I mean, but then I have a very specific set of skills, and so do you.
Yeah.
Who needs those? Do the people that you're buying planters from need art design?
Maybe they've got other planters that they're replacing their old ones with, and they're like, can you paint the other ones?
All right. Well, so we often talk about how interesting it is that, like, for example, Apple. Apple is going to fight that EU ruling as hard as they can. They're going to drag it out as long as they can. When our government here in the U.S. comes after them, same thing. They're going to talk it down.
Years.
They're going to say it's wrong. It's going to be a huge mess. In China, whenever the Communist Party says something, Apple's just like,
okay.
By noon. We'll have that by lunchtime. You know what? We're going to work through lunch to make sure that it's done.
We've moved everybody's schedules around.
Turns out they're not alone.
Exclusive. Microsoft Bing's censorship in China is even more extreme than Chinese companies.
So they point out that if you were to go onto a Chinese social media of some description and write up a couple of paragraphs and put Xi Jinping's name in those paragraphs, the auto-censoring apparatus will actually go in and just snip those sentences out. So it'll post your message without any reference to the glorious leader. Bing, on the other hand, just erases everything. If one of the words in there is not allowed, your message simply goes away.
Can you imagine? I mean, people post things and, sometimes get banned or shadow banned here, but it's not nearly as bad. Can you imagine just posting something on the internet and just immediately memory hold, instantly?
I think we've seen that.
Well, we just get demonetized.
But
the videos are still up.
But we got the shadow ban.
Yeah.
Which means that you see it, but nobody else does.
Nobody else does,
That's worse in some ways, I guess. But yeah, I can imagine that. I can certainly imagine what that world looks like. But I can't imagine this. This is actually, you know what? I can't imagine this because remember we had that train wreck?
I was going to say, well, yeah, we live in Eastern Kentucky. Come on.
A year ago. Well, let's do the headline.
Chinese rocket seen falling on a village with spewing highly toxic chemicals instead of the super good ones that you want blanketing your mountainsides.
Well, actually, yes. What you're saying is true, even though you're being facetious. They call the fuel that they use for their rockets is not what we use because it's really good fuel for rockets, but just crazy toxic. So we've actually had some changes in our rocketry programs. It's like, you know what? If this were to fall out of the sky and explode, we don't want to wipe out a city. So let's not use this stuff anymore. When it comes out, it's red. And this guy that they interviewed referred to in the chemical industry, it was known as I think it's a BFRC, which stands for Big Effing Red Cloud. And he says, the reason they shorten it to that, the reason everybody knows it, is if you see that, you just start running because it's that bad.
Oh.
It's that dangerous. And that's apparently what happened here to this poor village. Because the fuel in the booster was leaking as it came down. And I think it exploded.
Oh, screw that village in particular, I guess.
But they made it to the moon.
I saw that. That'll be in the space section. NASA is seething.
NASA's so far behind the curve at this point. And moving on to some security, it was a bad day in Indonesia.
More than 40 Indonesian agencies hit by cyberattack on data centers, including their immigration.
So
Rip.
they're pretty much locked up. Can't do much of anything. Can't get paid. Can't let people into the country. Can't let them out.
It's a bad time.
Bad time for sure. And it's a bad time if you bought Rabbit AI.
All two of you.
Because not only was it panned as being a terrible product, but it turns out the people that made it had no idea what they were doing.
Researchers prove Rabbit AI breach by sending email to us from the admin email.
Turns out there were API keys in there, in the code, accessible. And they point out that they used Kubernetes as the way that they deploy all of this stuff, which gives you the tools to obfuscate that and put a placeholder in its place and inject it at runtime. They didn't do that. They opted for the easy way out, which means that their product is not only bad, but a horrible, horrible security risk.
Do you think they used AI to write that code? Didn't check it. They're like, it's fine.
AI would be better than that, I think. You would have to tell AI, ignore that safety feature. And
that's just the extra, go an extra mile.
And the South Korean ISP, this one of them at least, definitely went the extra mile. And they might have had some AI help writing this software.
South Korean ISP infected torrenting subscribers with malware.
So the torrenting scene in South Korea they describe as being a little bit different. They have kind of like permanent seeds, web hosted. I can't remember what they call them. And the ISP's really not fans of that because it's traffic that they don't want to host, and the copyright holders get after them. And so they're like, you know what we should probably do? We should probably just build malware and put it on our subscribers' computers. And this stuff was actually deleting folders and like getting rid of pirated material and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm hoping that's illegal in their legal system.
I would think, but who knows?
Web hard torrents, that's what it was. It was like a more permanent BitTorrent that people could always get to. 600,000 users.
Bad news. Are you been coughing randomly too? I've had like a cough the last couple days.
Haven't really been paying attention to it. Maybe.
I didn't think I did, but then my husband was like, "You've been coughing a lot." And I was like, "Oh."
What do you think it is?
I don't know.
Well, much like Indonesia, our car dealerships all got hit with some malware, and it pretty much shut the whole thing down. It wasn't individual dealerships. You might be thinking, how did they all get hit? Well, it turns out they all use one third party. It's the old supply chain.
Yeah.
And when it breaks down...
Car dealerships in North America revert to pen and paper after cyber attacks on software provider.
They're saying it could be months before all
Gosh,
that.
that has to suck.
That's also going to be a massive hit to the next economic numbers.
Ooh, yeah. And people weren't really buying cars before because they're expensive right now.
Into the election. It's not what you want. And the hospitals of London were attacked by a very vicious malware, and then I think it was ransomware. And then last week we heard from the perpetrators supposedly saying that, like, oh, this was political commentary.
It's like, but there's still sick people who can't get their treatments.
And beyond that, not only are there sick people, but they have a lot of exfiltrated data. So if it was political commentary, you would just delete that, right?
Investigation of Russian hack on London hospitals may take weeks amid worries over online data dump. Bad news.
It was a lot of records.
Yeah, I'm sure medical records are everything.
I mean, not just like per row, but lots and lots of rows. 300 million patients. And yeah, they do have your medical history in there. Including, they pointed out stuff like HIV infection, which, you know, could definitely affect your life if the world knew about it. And they are not alone. We over here in the States, guess what? We're in the exact same position because it's all broken all the way up.
Change Healthcare confirms ransomware hackers stole medical records on a substantial proportion of Americans.
I bet they know the number.
Oh, yeah.
Roughly. But they didn't say the number.
They're not going to say it yet. They're going to wait until things cool down a little bit.
I think there was an estimate, and it was really, really high. Also, all of their employees was lumped in with this. What are you going to do? I mean, I feel like we need to get to a point where all of my stuff is with me and never with them.
Yeah.
And if I need to go to a doctor, I'll just take my stuff with me.
My family sort of does that. I mean, it's not that sophisticated. We literally just keep like a notebook and then we write down whatever the doctor tells us. And like, if someone has to stay in the hospital, like.
But you can't stop them.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm saying they should know nothing about me. Pay cash. They'll give you my records if I want to, and you doctor on me. I guess the problem you would run into there is the drug system, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you need to know if there's interactions between drugs, if they've been prescribed. If someone writes down the wrong thing, then you're screwed. Like,
I'd sign a waiver. I'd be like, yeah, all right, if that's on me. But I'm saying like opiates.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be the issue. And, right, Microsoft. This was a different one. So this was...
There's just so many, it's hard to keep track of them all.
This was not a traditional hack. This was a salty fired employee.
Microsoft blamed for million-plus patient record theft at U.S. hospital giant.
So Nuance was an IT provider. Somebody got fired. They did not disable the account. And they went in and helped themselves to some records, put them up for sale. They're looking to get $150,000 out of it.
Well, that's a ballsy thing to do as a former employee. Like, they know it was you.
Oh, yeah, they know. I think he might have been arrested at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're not going to get away with it. But that doesn't help all of us who now have our data leaked.
Right.
Are you a high roller? Do you shop at Neiman Marcus?
No, I don't think we even have one near here, do we?
I have no idea.
Isn't it like related to Macy's? We do have a Macy's.
I don't even know what they sell.
Lexington.
Do you know what they sell?
I think it's like a department store.
But it's kind of high end, right?
Yeah, like I said, I've never been to one, but
so
I think it's like a nicer Macy's maybe. Someone who's been, tell us.
There's a juicy data set, huh?
Yeah.
Lots of big targets here.
Neiman Marcus confirms data breach, claims its Snowflake account was hacked. Bad time for Snowflake yet again.
More problems from Snowflake.
It's our third week.
And it's funny because it doesn't all roll out all at once. It's like a trickle.
Yeah.
You know, the Snowflake.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then more and more stories come out.
If you're the Snowflake executive team, every time your email dings, you're like, please no.
You just smoke a cigarette immediately.
Vape.
They've actually installed the smoking section at the Snowflake office.
And, they say once a sucker, always a sucker. If you get hacked, you really have to learn a little bit, right? Like, if you burn your hand, you got to learn ways to not burn your hand because it'll happen again.
Crypto scammers circle back, pose as lawyers, steal an extra $10 million in a truly devious plan.
So they actually set up scam websites and, fake stuff, fake social media, saying, oh, no, we're part of this regulatory agency, Internet Crime Complaint Center. And we're here to help you. We know you got hacked because we hacked you. And we're here to help you. And, oh, by the way, though, you do have to pay a fee, which the FBI will never ask you for money.
That's incredible. The other thing that I find interesting about that is like, whatever, maybe you think that name sounds good, but surely you would look up the agency and make sure it had a .gov email, or not email, but a URL. But
I get emails from clients pretty regularly, and they're like, do you think this is a scam? And if you just look at where the email came from, it's just
clear,
immediately obvious. But they don't know. They don't know to look for that kind of stuff. Job security, I guess.
Yeah. And
this one, if Wendell was here, he would give you the I told you so.
Yeah.
Because we definitely have been predicting this. But, I mean, anybody with a pulse could have predicted this. It's obvious that this is going to happen, and it's going to keep happening. And I don't think anybody's going to stop trying to move this forward, even though it's clearly a bad idea.
ID verification service for TikTok, Uber, and X exposed driver's licenses.
So you want to prove your identity online so you can go to the hub or one of your various social media things? I have done this for Coinbase, unfortunately. Ooh. But how else am I going to be a crypto bro? And they can't keep it safe. And it's your driver's license. There's so much that bad actors can do with that.
They don't even tell you look young in your picture either when they get it.
They did say in one of these stories that they were working on artificial intelligence to guess things about you based on your driver's license photo.
I always look like a bitch in mine.
Yeah, it's always a bad photo.
Yeah, I'm always looking real. I'm mean mugging it. They never tell you when to smile, so I'm always like.
Try to get a gang sign in there. And how do you beat that, right? So if you're a bank and all of this stuff is happening and you might be on the hook when somebody gets scammed, you're going to go a long way to try to stop it. And that steps on privacy quite a bit.
Australian bank spot scams via how users hold their phones.
So, yeah. The angle, our phones are they have so many sensors in them. You can tell the angle. And if you're typing with one thumb versus two, or, the speed, the cadence, all artificial intelligence is able to sort of fingerprint all of that. And so what if you break your hand, though?
So I have a lot of questions about phone usage, and I can't find a ton of great studies that are recent about this because I've been looking into the best mobile menu practices. And everything I've found is from 2014 before phones got massive. And so it assumes people use their phones one-handed. But I can't use my phone one-handed anymore. And a lot of people I know can't because they're just too big. Mm. And I'm like, can I get some research about this that isn't locked behind a paywall?
It's kind of annoying in my experience, the bezel-less design.
Yeah.
One little part of your thumb pad
Yeah.
will touch it, and it's like, oh, you're touching two places now.
Oh, I'm confused.
Your
Yeah.
input is not. So yeah.
Yeah. So I end up having to use two hands, but I don't know. I want more info. I just want to learn about what users are actually doing in 2024 and not 10 years ago.
Well,
nobody's funding that user experience research, at least not publicly.
You know who has that data? The Australian banks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure like individual companies do. But like there used to be a time where you could go to like, I think it's like Nielsen Group or a couple other different ones, and you could like read studies about that they had conducted, but a lot of them don't have funding anymore.
But if you did have that publicly, AI would consume it and get better at tricking these safeguards. How crazy is that? And how good is all of this surveillance? Once again, if we give up our driver's license and we destroy all of our privacy, what are we really gaining there?
The mystery of AI gunshot detection accuracy is finally unraveling.
It's not great.
Time to plug into a wired subscription, Ryan.
It's some of them had reasonable numbers, but some of them were really bad. And the most important thing is that, yes, sometimes they had like a 60 to 80% hit rate on accurately detecting gunshots. They think. I mean, you can't really prove that all the time. But overall gun violence and deaths from gun violence and all the things that you would think that you would want to improve with this, none of those changed. The cops got there faster, but it didn't change anything. I really should silence that. And this one was a late update.
Very late update.
And this is another terrible, this was a widely used thing. And boy, do you really need to check out this before this goes bad for you.
Polyfill supply chain attack affects more than 110,000 websites.
This is just a little helper library, and you might be using it, like when you go to install something else, this might be a dependency that gets installed. Mm. And so you need to go and make sure, because the content delivery network is now putting malware in place of this, and it is going to serve various bad stuff on your website.
It's always just a race, isn't it? Every time you think you're good, there's something else.
Yeah, you can never. It's supposed to be so convenient.
Yeah.
But the automation and the level of complexity makes it impossible for you to ever really know what's going on. It's kind of like AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Package management and AI are both going into this world where it's like, it works, but don't worry about it.
Don't think about it, which I kind of don't love, but.
Yeah. And if you are using this, which again, lots and lots of people are, bad news, because once again, supply chain, something down the line gets hacked and you're in trouble.
Remote access giant TeamViewer says Russian spies hacked its corporate network.
Now, the good news here, the corporate network, they claim, can we trust this? They claim the corporate network is completely divorced from the user experience. So if you're using TeamViewer, you probably aren't in trouble here.
As of right now.
Yeah.
Within a week, who knows what updates we'll have about this story. Maybe they'll quietly slip it in right around 4th of July. Just, nobody needs to know. Oh, there goes that's motorcycle season.
I'm so glad I don't have to listen to motorcycles all day anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it, chat. We will be back with another episode very, very soon. Bye.